spoke about the playoffs so far in the first segment, and it's been interesting. And if you guys remember in episode 3, our guys who had been on that call, Jahn, Sifflet, Bevan, Frederick, and myself, we had a nice little discussion about the playoffs and what we thought would happen, and we had these brackets that we submitted, which were just our little opportunity to have some fun and kind of give some predictions on what we thought would happen in these NBA playoffs. And it's really interesting what's kind of transpired so far in these playoffs. And so far we could kind of just go through a little bit of the results, and I'll put the brackets up on screen to show you what's kind of happened. So my bracket, I'll start with mine. So far, out of the 15 outcomes that are possible in all of the matchups from round 1 to now, and looking ahead with who's been eliminated, etc., I have 10 out of 15 of the outcomes correct so far. And of course, the major killers for me, the way my brackets got busted, was that the Raptors were put out by the Celtics in the conference semifinals. So I had the Raptors going to the finals this year, repeating their Eastern Conference title defending. That didn't happen, so that just busted my bracket on the east side. And then of course I had the Clippers going forward to the Western Conference Finals, and that was severely stopped by the Denver Nuggets. So out of the 15 outcomes, I think I did really well. I had 10 correct choices, the Lakers going through, the Nuggets going through up until, the conference finals. I had the Heat beating the Bucks, which has happened, and being in the conference finals right now, but going against the Celtics, that didn't happen. But 10 out of 15 sounds alright, isn't it? It's not a bad score. And now we'll move on to Bevan's bracket. Bevan, had a few upsets, that he thought would transpire in these playoffs, and he hasn't seen them actually happen, unfortunately. So out of the 15 outcomes, he has had 9 correct actually. He had the Rockets reaching the conference finals. Of course, that is wrong. He also had the Clippers going all the way and winning the championship, as I did as well. I had the Clippers winning the NBA finals in the end. So did Bevan, and of course the Clippers haven't progressed, so he is wrong there. The Lakers are now in the conference finals. He also had the Bucks reaching the NBA finals, but of course we've seen what's happened with Milwaukee, and the conversation we had in segment 1 where the Bucks haven't been able to progress. He has rightfully the Celtics reaching the Eastern Conference Finals, and that's going on. So out of the 15 outcomes possible for these playoffs, Bevan has 9, so he is really close. So I have 10, he has 9, so I still have a very slim lead in these brackets so far. And we come to Jahn, who is this one is really interesting. Jahn, out of the 15 outcomes so far, has 8 correct, but he is the only person with a horse in the race. To use an analogy there, he is the only one who has a player who has a team which is still in these playoffs at the moment. Well, no, actually, I have the Lakers in the conference finals as well, but I had the Clippers beating them in the conference finals. So I was right up until the conference finals, but Jahn has the Heat reaching the finals, and that was his upset pick. That was the pick that he chose that surprised all of us. He said repeatedly, that's a homer pick. He was just an avid supporter of the Heat, and he thought that they will meet in whoever it was in the Eastern Conference Finals for the right to get to the finals. And he has the Heat reaching the finals. That outcome is 2 games away. They are up on the Boston Celtics 2-1 in the Eastern Conference Finals. So even if Jahn, out of the outcome so far of the playoffs, He had the Blazers going through to the Western Conference Finals. That didn't happen, so that kind of decimated his bracket on the left side. He had the Clippers winning all the way, winning the championship this year, but the fact that he still has the Heat as the lone remaining team and the one that possibly will make the finals, he has probably, even with the lowest number of correct outcomes so far, his bracket carries the most weight. So me with my 10 correct outcomes so far, it's like, yeah, I've won the popular vote or the statistical vote. I'm the winner so far where that's concerned. But if you had to look at it like the US elections, let's say Jahn has won the electoral college because if the Heat go to the finals, Jahn has overwhelmingly, I would say, be correct and be the winner of our bracket challenge this year. So, he has this one outcome. If they reach the finals, he would have 9 correct outcomes out of the 15. So yeah, we'll wait to see what happens. But like I said in the segment 1, where we now talking about the Lakers and Nuggets, I think, of course, a new set of facts have come about, and you now need to change your position and kind of make a different prediction because what you thought isn't actually what's happened. So I think now, like I said, I think the Lakers will win in 6. They will progress past the Denver Nuggets, and it will be LeBron's 10th trip to the NBA Finals, with the right to go up for a championship against whoever it is comes out of the East. And it looks like the Heat at the moment, but we're not sure what's happening there just yet. And of course, we saw LeBron James being very open and honest about what he thought about the MVP results, where Giannis just won his second trophy. And of course, LeBron was like 16 votes out of 101 for being the MVP. He was not pleased with that. So, he has now some extra motivation to push himself and the Los Angeles Lakers through to try to win and, to honor the legacy of Kobe Bryant and, bring the Lakers back to some level of respectability as champions in this NBA season. So we'll see what happens there. LeBron wants to see what happened there. The whole world is waiting to see what's happening there. I'm in numerous conversations on WhatsApp where people don't want to see LeBron win. And I think, it's going to be really interesting to see, what the outcome is. But so far, the Lakers have shown to be really dominant. Let's see if they could continue to contain Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic and actually progress to the NBA Finals and, bring the ring home for Los Angeles. So this is going to be really interesting as we expect. And the playoffs, bubble ball is alive and well. Just keep watching and, we're going to see what happens as things progress. Okay, and the last topic we have on today is, it's a topic that I've been thinking about for the last couple of months, I think. Before I even started the show, I was like, this is something that has been out for some time now, but it seems like it needs some sort of update. The NBA in 1996 selected a list of 50 players across its history and called them the 50 greatest players of all time in the game's history. And of course, there was no debate with that list at that time in 1996. We had a lot of players like Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan, Bill Russell, Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, all the old guys and some of the current guys who were there. But of course, 1996 to 2020, it's been 24 years since that list was put out. And, for me, I looked at it and I was trying to figure out, I think there's some people who are now retired who were studs in the 90s and the early 2000s and who probably would be considered part of that 50 greatest players list right now. And let me just say straight off the bat, this is not me saying that the people who were originally on that 50 greatest list should not be that anymore. I think, if anything, that should be considered version 1 of that 50 greatest list, 50 greatest players list in NBA history, because the guys who made that team, they deserve to be there at that point. But if we really have to take into account the players who have since come and gone, we have players that we may need to actually put on that list. So inevitably, even if we consider that version 1, if we have to redo that list, some will stay and some will go to make way for some of the new guys who should be on there. So we'll just jump straight into what I think, which might upset a few people, and it might be what some people think. But I think the 50 greatest players of all time, quite a number of them should remain the same. And everything right now here is just up for debate. And we talk about the greatest of all time all the time, between LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and all these sorts of things. And one of the things we probably should take into account is eras cannot be compared. Eras cannot be compared, and it should be greatest of their time rather than greatest of all time. But I think most people think Michael Jordan is that, and I will not disagree. But if we think about the 50 greatest list, I think there are a couple of players on there that may need substituting with a few new guys. So, all right, I'll just get straight into it because we don't want to stay too much longer on this episode. So I have my inclusions into the greatest players list are Tim Duncan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Kevin Durant, Dennis Rodman, who interestingly was not on that list at that time. I don't think he was with the Bulls as yet, or if he was, it was his first season. So he hadn't had the chance to win more and add to his legacy. But I think Dennis Rodman should be on that list. And I had a really tough time of choosing the 7th person. We had Giannis, who just won his 2-time MVP award, and he also became the 3rd player ever in NBA history to win the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year award. Because of that, he's in rarefied air, and he should be considered one of the best in the game ever. He, of course, hasn't won a ring just yet, but I don't think he doesn't have enough tenure in the league and accomplishments to really put him at that stage. So I have Giannis there as a question mark, but he's not in. He's maybe 51 on this greatest list, maybe. But I had a really surprising pick here, and I had Tony Parker. If many people remember what Tony Parker did for the San Antonio Spurs, along with Tim Duncan, who I'm including on this list, Tony Parker is a 4-time NBA champion. He was also NBA Finals MVP. He has, quite a lot of accolades to his name, Olympic medals, EuroLeague titles, like I mentioned before, NBA championships and everything. Tony Parker, I think, is a really underrated player who has the number of rings, that will make him eligible to be on this list, but also a Finals MVP, which I think was really important to put in. But I have some other players here as well, I think, who really need some really hard conversation, deliberation for being on the 50 greatest list now as well. So we have guys like Jason Kidd, who also won a championship ring and is 2nd all-time on the assist list for the NBA. So he probably should be on that list as well, maybe. Allen Iverson, anyone who knows me knows Allen Iverson is my favorite player after Michael Jordan. I think he should be there. Kevin Garnett, Manu Ginobili as well. Another player in that trio of Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, and Manu Ginobili. Manu Ginobili showed, to be a 6th man and everything else. He balled out when he was in his prime. So probably he needs that consideration. And Kawhi Leonard, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time champion, 2-time NBA Finals MVP. He also probably deserves that consideration as well. But I think in terms of tenure, I don't think he's there yet. So just like Giannis, I think he's just on the outside, 51, 52, 53, thereabouts. But I think this 50's greatest list, greatest players list should include these 7 players: Tim Duncan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Kevin Durant, Dennis Rodman, and Tony Parker. So you could hit me up and tell me, what you think about that, and if you think I'm talking absolute rubbish. But that's just what I think. Some of the people that I gave some sort of consideration are Russell Westbrook, Vince Carter, James Harden, Steve Nash, and Chris Paul. But they're not there yet. They haven't earned enough. Even if they're offensively really talented, and Russell Westbrook with his triple double stuff, he probably needs consideration. But I don't think above these players that I mentioned, he's not there. So of course that then begs the question of who are we removing from the 50 greatest players list. And my criteria for moving people, it was really difficult, because it's, how do you take out players who paved the way for these new players to be there, and who were legends of their times and deserved to be on that list in 1996. But the decision had to be made. If you need to make a new list, you need to remove a couple of players or substitute some players. So the removals that I had were based on this criteria. They only had either no rings or at least one. So 0 to 1 rings. They had no MVP, no finals MVP. They were not in the record books for any statistical category, and they were less than 10 All-Star game appearances and less than 20,000 points scored on the all-time scoring list. So it was a combination of all these criteria. So I'll call that out again. 0 to 1 rings, no MVPs, regular season or finals, not in the record books in terms of statistical categories. They're not in the top 5 in scoring, rebounding, assists, or anything like that. Less than 10 All-Star games and less than 20,000 points all time. So the guys I have removed very begrudgingly, and I take no I didn't like doing this. But but again, maybe it's a function of me being a bit younger and not seeing these guys play in their prime. But like I said, if we're going to think about a list of players who were created in 1996, let's call that version 1, they deserve to be there. But if we're going to revamp this list, these are the 7 guys I'm saying that should be removed. So pardon me in advance, but Dave Bing, Jerry Lucas, Pete Maravich, Earl Monroe, and Lenny Wilkins. These are the 5, and then I had Nate Archibald and George Gervin. Now, some of these names, of course, Pete Maravich, George Gervin, Nate Tiny Archibald, Lenny Wilkins, some of these guys are some outstanding players in history. And if I go to the list that I've picked up off the internet with all the players in there from the 50 greatest players, Nate Archibald, he won a ring. He was an all-star only 6 times, 16,000 points. He's nowhere close to the assist record that John Stockton has. John Stockton doesn't have a ring, doesn't have MVPs or anything, but the fact that he holds the all-time assist record, he had to stay in for me. He had to stay. So Nate Archibald was out. Dave Bing, same thing. No rings, no MVPs, no finals MVPs, 7 All-Star appearances, 18,000 points. He was really close, but it was one of those things. It was just one of those things. If you need to put the new guys in, you need to take someone out. George Gervin, I battled with this one. I thought he should stay, but the fact that he hadn't won any championships, no MVPs, 9 All-Star appearances, but 20,000 points, 20,708 points, just over the 20,000 cutoff line. But the fact that there are no championships, no MVPs, and he was under 10 All-Star appearances, I took him off. Jerry Lucas, who played for the Cincinnati Royals, San Francisco Warriors, and New York Knicks back in the day. He won 1 ring with the Knicks in 1973. No MVPs, won 7 All-Star appearances. Pistol Pete Maravich, everyone knows, all of the grainy black and white pictures of, the guy who was kind of, the flashiest passer back in the day. He deserves a lot of credit for what he's done for the game, but no rings, no MVPs, 5 All-Star appearances, 15,000 points, nowhere close on the assist list with just 3,563. His impact on the game, of course, must have been something. But, just thinking about the list of players that we need to put in, it's difficult. Earl Monroe, that was a really hard one as well for the Knicks. He won a championship there. No MVPs, 4 All-Star appearances. And then we have Lenny Wilkins, who, I think many of us remember him as a Toronto coach. Was it Toronto? Yeah, he was with the Toronto Raptors at one point in time as the coach. He played for the St. Louis Hawks, the Seattle Supersonics, Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Portland Trailblazers. He won a championship in 1979. So he has one ring. He made 9 All-Star squads, but no MVPs won. So when you think about people that you could possibly move, and like I said, I took no pleasure in doing this, but if we have to think about a revamped list to include Kobe Bryant, to include Tim Duncan, to include, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, some people had to move. And, these were the 7 guys that I thought were based on the criteria that I used, were the ones who were eligible to be taken off. So that's my list, 50 greatest players. I know I'm actually wanting to maybe have a discussion with someone who has a closer connection to that list. And, Peter Vesey, who I mentioned in the Actors Post promo, he was one that I interviewed on the Actors Post, spoke about him and his career as a sports journalist and everything. He was one of the panelists who chose the 50 greatest players of all time. So he had a really unique take on who should be on that list. So I might probably reach out to him and see if I could get some commentary on what I have done in terms of inclusions and removals and hear what he thinks on that. But, let me know what you think. I think, these guys that I've called out, Duncan, LeBron, Kobe, Wade, KD, Rodman, Tony Parker, potentially, these are 7 guys who kind of deserve to be in the all-time conversation right now, because they've done a lot for the game. And they have, when you think about points scored and stats that they've put up and MVPs won and finals MVPs and all of that, they need to be there when you think about it. So let me know what you think. So, but this is it for me. Episode 5. Did this one on my own. It's a little bit of a longer. I wanted to make it this a bit of a shorter episode, but doing it on my own, sometimes I need to just fill the content in. So hope you guys enjoyed. I might split this episode into another 2 parts just to kind of take this in. But I think let me know what you guys think about what I think about a prediction. I think Lakers will go all the way to the finals. What do you think about Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Paul probably linking up together? Another name 2 names I want to throw into the hat for the Milwaukee Bucks are Zach LaVine and John Wall. I think if John Wall is really healthy, as he says he is right now, and fully recovered, he would be a really major pickup for the Milwaukee Bucks. So I think that the Bucks need to look at that. And of course, our brackets. We spoke about our brackets. I am the current leader in the clubhouse. I think in terms of stats, I've got 10 of 15 outcomes correct. But Jahn is the only one who has a realistic chance of showing that one of the selections that he's made has made it to the finals. So he's gotten the default vote as the winner at the moment, and also the 50 greatest of all time list. Let me know what you think about that. So I would like to stop here for today and say thank you for viewing. I hope you had a good listen. You enjoyed this episode. If you haven't seen the other episodes, go onto the YouTube page. Just search for Baseline to Baseline with Alister Albert. I have a couple of posts up there already where we have discussed various things so far. And of course, like, subscribe. Please, guys, I need to get my subscribers numbers up a little bit. So I'd really like if you guys could just like and subscribe. Follow on Instagram and Twitter. To continue listening to the conversations that I will have. And stay tuned. Episode 6 is coming up. Next week I have a guest lined up. Someone who runs basketball here in the UK. Literally runs it. I'm not going to say who it is just yet, but that's all slated for next week. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be another fun interview where we discuss the NBA playoffs and much, much more. So stay tuned, like and subscribe. Baseline to Baseline with Alister. But I'm your host, signing out for today. Hope you enjoy. Bye-bye.